Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi here at the beach to welcome you to Eldrazi Summer. So, Robin, do you have anything you'd like to add regarding Eldrazi Summer?
Hot! Hot, real hot. But it's hot, I told you again. Were you born on the sun? Hot. You can be a little thing. I saw hot. I saw one of those little guys in the orange robe burst into flames.
Thank you, Robin. I really could not have said it better myself. 2024 marks the 70th anniversary of the Godzilla franchise, and just like Godzilla, Modern Horizons 3 is going to be an absolute monster of a set. So if you want to throw your weight around just like Godzilla, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you find this video helpful, be sure to share it out on your favorite social media platform. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Let's start off by putting this in a little bit of context. I realize that about a third of you are not interested in this set at all. And I have to admit, I am less interested than I thought I would be. I'm kind of in that middle, do the minimum category. And in doing so, I did do a draft for June for Modern Horizons 3. And with that, I discovered the Eldrazi Simic deck or Teamer deck. I was really impressed with it. I found that it did remarkably well. I played it in the only MH3 midweek Magic event, and it went 2-0. Unlike most of the other decks that I was playing, went about 1 win for 2 to 3 losses. So a much better performance from the Eldrazi there. And because of that, I decided that it deserved a little bit more attention. And ultimately, I believe this is a deck with a lot of budget potential in Historic, not only now, but in years to come, with very little wildcard resources required. All right, so what do you say we take a look at this Eldrazi Summer deck? In the first column, I have 4 general support cards. Horrific Assault, start things off. It is sorcery speed, but this is kind of one of the best fight spells they've ever put in Arena for Eternal, and it does care about Eldrazi, which makes it an optimal choice here. Sage of the Unknowable helps with your colorless mana production. That's always a good thing. Similarly, Nightshade Dryad not only gives you colorless, but can help fix your mana. Since we are a 3-color Teamer deck, that is always pretty valuable there. Not to mention, this gives a pretty sizable board presence as a 1/2 Death Touch blocker. And then lastly, a single copy of Solar Transformer. This provides energy, which you can convert into a mana of any color, again, to help with your color fixing. And it always taps for colorless mana, which is fantastic in an Eldrazi deck. This is one of those cards that I recommend everybody have at least one of in their collection. It not only works beautifully in this deck, it goes very nicely in the Energy deck that's starting to come together for Modern Horizons 3 in various Eternal formats. And it's also a very good Brawl card for its color fixing properties. The second column here is essentially just commons that are Eldrazi or care about Eldrazi. And the rule of thumb that I followed was to run 2 of each. There were a couple of exceptions though. Repurposer, I am running a single copy, as I am a somewhat silver bullet corrupted shapeshifter. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, Writhing Ceaseless, try saying that 3 times fast. I am running 3 copies on, and honestly, I think 4 might be the right quantity. Maybe cutting for one of the sages, that's a very strong possibility. Also a very strong card in Pauper for when that comes back around Historic. We might have to explore an Eldrazi Pauper deck, because as you can see, there is a lot of common functionality there. Third column is sort of the same thing, only different. We are running uncommons here, and the rule of thumb was to run 1 of each. again, there were a couple of exceptions, is that that heralds the end, kind of your colorless Eldrazi Lord uncommon. We're running 2 of those. And then Glaring Flesh Raker that helps create 0/1 spawn tokens and deal incidental damage to your opponent whenever a colorless creature ETBs. We're running 4 copies on that. Now, I only left room for 1 higher rarity wild card in this deck because, honestly, I'm trying to keep it fairly budget. And I'm not going to pretend like there's not a lot of great choices out there for the use of even that single wild card. Null Drifter is a great addition to many collections, and of course, Eldrazi are known for your big, beefy, legendary creatures. There are multiples out there to be considered. And really, depending upon your individual needs and preferences as a player, any of them are really valid choices. Now, my card of choice for the rare / mythic wild card for this is actually Echoes of Eternity. It's not quite as flashy, but in this particular deck, I think it gives you more bang for your buck than really any of the other alternatives. But depending upon what your primary playstyle is, some of those Eldrazi Lords and things like that might be the way to go. Really could not argue against it. Now, when it comes to the mana base, we kept it pretty basics. Islands and forests at 5 and 8 respectively, a single mountain. And while I am definitely someone to advise people to craft your shock lands and your fetch lands, since we are in a historic deck concept here, the fetch lands don't really work. And honestly, I think a budget alternative for this deck that works beautifully is the Temur Landscape card, because of course it can be sacrificed to fix your mana, go get your mountain, whatever you might need. But until then, it actually taps for that crucial colorless mana that many of our cards are going to need. Cavern of Souls, everybody should have one of these for their standard collection, at least one. I'm just running 1 in this particular list for that reason. It does tap for colorless mana, it does color fixing if you name Eldrazi for the rest of the deck, and it makes those crucial Eldrazi drops uncounterable, and that can be huge. Fabled Passage is one of those very versatile, rare land pieces. I think everybody needs to have one of these in their collection. You sack it, you go get a basic land of your choice. Works in virtually every deck, and of course we are running it here. I think most people know Secluded Courtyard from Standard. It does, again, tap for that crucial colorless mana. You name a creature type, it can produce mana of any color you need to cast those spells. So very nice piece. Fixes all of your Eldrazi needs here. Also running Unclaimed Territory, which is basically an exact reprint of Secluded Courtyard, although technically it did come first. So if you are more of a standard brawl player as your primary, having one of each of these is probably good, but it's entirely possible, and I have recommended in the past, that people have 2 copies of Secluded Courtyard for standard, so you can make those pretty interchangeable. For this list, there's no reason to not mix and match there as you need. Now, lastly, with the mana base is the dual modal lands from Modern Horizons 3. I think this has forever changed the way budget decks will be built, particularly in historic. There's a couple that I think everyone should have and run in every deck that uses either color. Revitalizing Repast, of course, a +1/+1 counter is always good. We have at least 1 card which gets extra benefit from that. Also giving a creature indestructible at instant speed, especially your big beaters, always good. And you can play this as a tapped green mana source if you need to. Similarly, Stomp is just a really good removal spell. It's target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So really almost one of the best fight spells out there as far as targeting planeswalkers. And of course, you can play it as tap land for either green or more likely red. Drowner Truths is more specifically for this deck. Of course, the creature itself is an Eldrazi 7/6, and it creates 2 spawn tokens when it comes in play. And of course, you can play it as a green or blue land, actually, excuse me, dual land, green or blue source, if the need should arise. And before we go, I want to take just a moment to thank my totally awesome patrons for supporting me and allowing me to apply my passion into a community. And of course, before we go, I've got some suggestions for your next step.